Hi everyone, I'm Charles Jung. Each year, AABA's leaders get together to plan for the year. This includes a session on the nuts and bolts of AABA committee leadership. We cover how to run a successful committee, how to plan and market an event, and finances and fundraising. Please enjoy.
So hey everyone, my name is Lisa. I am this year's secretary for AABA. Thank you all for being here. This portion of the retreat is about the committee nuts and bolts, and it's designed to really give you guys as co-chairs an overview of the fundamentals of how to run your committees and how to put on high quality programming. All of the board members, including myself, we've all been committee members. We've all been committee co-chairs. So we really understand how much work and effort it takes for you guys to put on these programs and to manage your committees. So we really appreciate you guys doing that and really stepping up your game every single year. And the way I see it, and I think a lot of board members feel this way too, is that the committees are like the foundation of AABA. Okay, you are the ones that help us address certain goals that the organization has. For example, advocacy on civil rights issues, increasing our pipeline, putting on mentorship programs, and you're also serving the needs of various constituencies that we have within the organization, like solo small firm, public law, judiciary, just to name a few. And we have a record number of committees this year. We have 20. So we're always growing and we're always looking to serve the needs of our community, which I think is really great. But that's the work that is the foundation of AABA. So we can't do that without you guys. You guys are the ones that put on the high quality programming every single year and addressing relevant issues in our community and serving the needs, the professional needs of our membership. So it's really, really important what you guys do. And we hope that this portion is going to help both new and returning co-chairs sort of as a refresher on how to run your committees and how to serve the organization. So what I want to talk about first is committee development. As Charles said, one of our strategic plan goals for the next 4 years is investing in you guys as leaders of AABA and leaders of your committees. And what does committee development mean? For me, it really boils down to 3 things. One is recruitment. Second is leadership development within your own committee. And the third is succession planning. So I just want to touch on each of these really briefly. So first is recruitment. I've heard a lot of chatter about how hard it is to find members for your committees and how to keep them engaged in the committee once they are members. So recruitment is something that I think every committee should really be thinking about the entire year, not just at the beginning, but the entire year. How do you find new members? How do you recruit them? How do you get them interested in your committee's work? And once they are members, how do you engage them and keep them interested and keep them coming back? One thing that may be helpful is collaboration with other committees. If you are attending other committees' events or you're co-sponsoring or you're co-hosting, that's a really good way to bring different committees and different groups of people together. And you may be at a social event and then you start talking to someone on the public law committee and you're like, hey, that sounds really cool. Maybe I should go check out that committee. So there are ways to create synergy within the committees and hopefully exchange members, because I think a lot of our members have overlapping interests. It's not like they just want to do one thing. They just maybe sign up for one committee and they don't even know what all the other committees do. So if you have a way to kind of promote your committee's work, just sort of like an elevator pitch that you can use to recruit members at all of the events that you're going to, I think that would be really helpful. On our end, I think we're going to add something to our membership application where when people renew or they sign up, they can select committees that they're interested in, and maybe we'll have a little description about each committee, so I think that would be really helpful as well. But we want you to actively work on recruiting and have some ideas in mind for the year about how you're going to get new members and retain them. Leadership development. So once you have your members, this is more about how do you get them involved and engaged, right? And that means getting them involved and taking leadership roles even before they become a co-chair, right? Because you as co-chairs do a lot of work and it's really helpful for you guys from a programming perspective if you're not doing all of the work, if you have other people helping you. And this also in turn helps those people get the skills that they need to be leaders in your committee and eventually hopefully take on the co-chair role when you no longer want to do it. So the way to do this is identifying those members that are stepping up. And what do your members want to do for the committee? What ideas do they have? What are they bringing to the table? And really asking them, like, what experiences, skills, and benefits do they want from serving on the committee? And how can they learn that from serving on the committee? So it's really about trying to groom new leaders within your own committee, which helps you. It helps the longevity of your own committee. And it really adds a lot of value when people are joining your committee, because a lot of times I think members feel like, oh, well, we're not a co-chair and we're not really in the spotlight. We don't get a lot of credit for all the grunt work that we do, and this is something that we're trying to change. And we really want people to feel invested, and we really want them to feel like they are gaining leadership skills by serving on these committees, and hopefully will step up to be co-chair in the future. And that segues into succession planning, which is something that we've never really talked about formally for the committees, I think. But this is coming up because I think in recent years there's been a lot of turnover with the co-chairs, with people all leaving at the same time, with new people coming in, not having institutional knowledge about how each committee runs their events each year. Sometimes people are appointed as co-chairs and they've never even been a member of the committee. So when you have problems like that, it is kind of chaotic because you spend a good chunk of the year trying to figure out what to do, and you're kind of spinning your wheels and asking for a lot of help from your board liaisons and from the prior co-chairs. And so it's a lot easier if committees are really thinking about succession planning. And each committee, I think, has different needs, but we think that it's best if the co-chairs figure out what works best for their own committee. So we want you guys to be thinking about that throughout the year. And some points that you might want to think about are what leadership structure works best for your committee. What you guys have right now may be working now, but it may not work next year. It may not work in years later. So think about how many co-chairs do you really need? If you have a vice chair, how is that different from the real chair? Do you really need the vice chair? Do you really need 4 co-chairs, or is 3 okay, or maybe 2? And that depends on the number of programs that you have and also everyone's workload and that sort of thing. So considering the number, considering everyone's role, does one co-chair just want to handle one big project and then the other co-chairs handle the rest? I mean, there's just ways to distribute work that really make sense. And think about terms. I tend to think staggered terms for committee chairs work really well. So if you have 3 co-chairs, having some sort of agreement or plan that only one of the co-chairs is going to leave at most at the end of the year. Or if you have 3, making sure there's always one person who has the experience and the institutional knowledge sticking around, so that if there are new people coming in, that person can be the source of institutional knowledge. So just thinking about terms and the number in your leadership, how you're going to communicate vacancies or upcoming vacancies to your members. A lot of times people will step up if they know that, hey, there's an opportunity for me to be a co-chair of this committee that I've worked really hard for. If they know that, sometimes people are more invested and they'll start doing more things. How are you going to identify and select and groom new co-chairs? And if you have new people coming in, how are you going to pass on institutional knowledge? We have committees who are really good at keeping like a repository or a folder of things that they've done in the past, and they pass that on to the next set of co-chairs so that that next set, they have templates. They have things that they can refer to about how things were done in the past, and they're not spinning their wheels every single year. I think that's really good. I think that all the committees should have something like that if they don't already. And really, all of this is just thinking about what the future of the committee will look like. So these are the things that I want you guys to focus on in terms of your committee development, in addition to your programming. And after the retreat is over, I'm going to be reaching out to each of the co-chairs, and I want you guys to put together just a really quick one-sheet about what your plan is for each of these 3 points. I'm sorry that it's more homework, but I think it's really good if the co-chairs now start thinking about these 3 points and they put it down on paper, because it forces you to actually think intentionally about these 3 things, especially succession planning. We just want to know as a board, what are you guys planning to do for the next year or 2 or 3? I think it'll be really helpful. So now I'm going to have Claire come up. Claire's one of our directors at large. She also is a longtime co-chair of Community Services Committee before she joined the board, and I think CSC has had a lot of good ideas about how to address these points, so she's going to talk about that.
But my experience on the CSC, as a co-chair of CSC, I was on CSC for about 4 years as a co-chair, a member for many years. And so in terms of recruitment, at least from my experience, was that every time I went to an AABA event and I met someone new, I was always pitching Community Services Committee. I was always saying like, hey, instead of doing all this lawyerly stuff, do you want to do something fun and do some gardening work this weekend? Or, we're going to make cards, or we're going to do like gift packaging for, women and troubled teens, things like that, like to get to them aware. Like, there is actually, you go on the AABA website and you see all these committees. It's kind of like information overload. So word of mouth, like marketing, is kind of the key. So whenever I saw someone new, I would tell them, come to one of the CSC events. Then we would retain them by committing them to an event. So the first meeting that CSC has is a kickoff meeting, and we have a calendar of what we're going to do throughout the year, and whoever's shown up to that meeting gets assigned to an event at that meeting. And then there's a reminder, like 2 months usually, like, hey, remember you signed up to coordinate this event, and then they're in it. Too late. Like, you've signed up to do it. So, and I think that also keeps them engaged because it's kind of on their mind, and then even if they've forgotten about CSC, now they're coming out and they see again what we do. What we also started doing at CSC, I think fairly early on, was we used MailChimp. We didn't rely on just the AABA newsletters or the weekly email blasts because it's information overload. If we have an event coming up and you've already signed up because you're interested in CSC, we added you to a mailing list, and you would get an update like, hey, we have an event coming up in the next 2 months, and this is where you sign up, and we'd have an RSVP link to the AABA website registration. In terms of leadership development, like I said, we assign them to an event. What we would do is we would have one co-chair assigned to each of the events and have 2 committee members signed up to coordinate the event. So it's not just on one person alone. It's 2 people. They can figure out between the 2 of them how to split up that workload. But we have the co-chair kind of managing what they're doing and giving them guidance on how to run the event. At the kickoff meeting, we're also opening it up to new ideas. We're always asking members, if you think of an idea that you think is something that CSC can do, always let us know, because we're very open about adding events to the calendar. I think one of the issues we had was, CSC has a monthly pro bono clinic, and it's usually immigration issues. And some people had said, I don't feel like I have enough training in immigration to actually participate in these clinics. So we started a clinic to help clinic coordinators, to help people understand a little bit of immigration law so that they feel easier about coming out to the clinic. So we just, you add that onto the calendar changes. It's about flexibility, but ideas are always open. I think we have a lot of procedures for planning an event. It's almost rote. So we have a document repository. I think in my Dropbox, I have like 5 years of planning stuff from CSC broken down by 2017 volunteer appreciation, 2016 pathways or legally Asian, and things like that. So that always gets passed on to the next kind of co-chairs, the next generation. And that makes it really easy to coordinate events because we have kind of this institutional knowledge. We have like emails in there from like the director of the National Parks Conservancy for our yearly environmental events. So you don't have to go looking. We actually have a resource there for you. Contact this person, and this is kind of what they usually look for. And the person coordinating the event already has that information, and it's a fairly easy process. And then we have lots of blurbs describing the event, so you don't have to reinvent the whole wheel for advertising your event. You have all of that. You have flyers in there already. You should just tweak it a little bit. In terms of succession planning, I think we've had a lot of success in having 3 co-chairs. And it's like Lisa said, it's like a staggered kind of a thing where you have one who has been on a co-chair for like 2-3 years already, and they have a really deeper institutional knowledge. Someone who's kind of a medium level, and then we have the brand new co-chair, and that way that gets passed on really easily. and we, like I said, we have the document depository, and the institutional knowledge gets passed on, not through just the people, through our depository as well. And then I think what we did in CSC is we just kept an eye out for people who looked like they wanted more responsibility or who seemed to be really good at doing some of these events. And then if they were good at it, we would just approach them and say, what do you think about in the future? I don't know if there's a vacancy now or if there will be, but how about in the future that you consider being a co-chair? And we plant that idea in their head, and it's in there, and then they continue to participate. And when there is an opening, then we tap them and we say, what do you think about being a co-chair? And I think they've been receptive to that, and we've been very successful in that. That's it. Thanks.
All right, thank you, everyone.
So I'm Michelle Park Chiu. Thank you for that kind introduction, Charles. So I was Education Committee co-chair for I think 2 or 3 years, and have not just with AABA but with my own firm and other organizations that I'm involved with, plan a lot of events. And so I thought it would be helpful for all of you, because the events are really how we show our best foot forward for AABA to not only our existing members but potential new members and our community, because we have a lot of people who will come to an event and they'll be like, oh, this is really great. Who is this AABA? I thought it was a band or AABA, whatever it is. So it's a really, really nice way for people to get to know each other and also to get to know the organization as a whole. So a couple of just overarching themes that I have is be ambitious. You should be thinking about, I want to put on a really cool event that I'm proud of and that people are going to want to go to. I'm not saying there's not a place for more niche practice areas or topics, but think big and be thinking about who you want to serve as a speaker or what kind of event that you want, and help that be transformative in your event planning. Don't just do the same things your committee has done every year just because it's easy. Be creative. Think of new ideas, topics, current events, issues. I know Women's Committee did some things around the Me Too movement about a year or 2 ago. That's great. We should be tapping into what our membership is engaged in and what the community as a whole is engaged in. So just something to keep in mind. I like to emphasize quality over quantity. It's hard to put on a successful event, especially one that is going to attract, 25, 50 plus members. The MCLE mini marathon that Roland and the Education Committee put together a couple weeks ago. It takes a lot of time. There's a lot of moving parts. You've got to find speakers. You've got to find a host. So with that in mind, I think committees should focus on what are the, marquee events that are really important to us and to what we do as a committee, rather than trying to plan a lot of really small events that are sort of haphazard and might not have that many people attending. Think about content. What's going to attract new members and re-engage our existing members. So I'm a huge fan of featuring speakers who are well-known and well-regarded in the legal community and who people want to meet. So whenever I'm trying to get an event that has 50 plus people, I always ask Sally Yu. Why? Because everyone wants to meet Sally. But that's the kind of thinking you have. And I've talked to a lot of people who are like, oh, I don't know Sally and I don't want to email her. Could you email her? Or, just email them. The people who are engaged with AABA and who have come as AABA leaders are always happy to take your email. It can help if you have someone who know them, they might, respond a little bit faster, but be bold. When I was first Education Committee co-chair, I just cold called a bunch of people and said, I'm the Education Committee co-chair for AABA. I would really like you to be on a presentation. Would you be interested? And I never got a no. So just think about that. AABA means a lot to our members, both current and prior leaders. So you have a lot of credibility already by being one of these people in this room. Target audience size. We like to have a minimum 25 for your events, and that's not counting committee meetings. I understand those are kind of be smaller, but things that you're putting on our AABA calendar and advertising to members, you want to target 25 as a minimum, which means your RSVP rate probably has to be 40 to 50 because people flake all the time. So just keep that in mind. And then seek hosts and sponsors early. The hardest part of securing your event is getting the date and a place to put it that hopefully is not charging you a lot of money. And so you need to be thinking about opportunities soon. Law firms are great targets to host your space. They have a lot of it. It's usually free. But you need to go out into the community and build those relationships, both with people on the board and your co-chairs and in the membership generally, because it's a good way for firms to demonstrate that they're committed to diversity and inclusion. All right, I think I have another slide. Okay, advanced planning. You should be thinking about confirming your date and location at least 45 days in advance. And I actually think 2 to 3 months for large events is really preferable. So when I want to put something on that's going to have a large audience, you need to be contacting your speakers 2 to 3 months out and getting their schedule. A couple of reasons why this is important. People's schedules fill up really, really fast. Like, so for example, if you try to get me to show up at a meeting next month, I'm already booked, right? So I'm not going to have any availability. And the people who you are probably inviting to do that for as well are going to have that issue. So the farther out you look in their calendar, the better chance you're going to have of them saying yes. And then you commit them early. You say, okay, I'm going to send you an Outlook calendar invite to hold that time on your calendar. And then hopefully what will happen is they'll feel worse about canceling if it's been on their calendar for a really long time. So they'll commit the time to it. I always start with the key speakers first, their schedules. So if you're building an event around a topic and a certain people you want, talk to them first and find what works for their schedule and your schedule, lock that date in, and then start looking for location and sponsors. You should always check the AABA and NBC, the Minority Bar Coalition calendars first before you start advertising your event and committing. So it has happened less frequently, I think, as we've educated our co-chairs. We've had a couple of situations in the past where really important events are all stacked on the same day, and so you're going to get a natural division of your potential audience, which we want to avoid. So please check, and once you have it confirmed, email Ezra and the NBC contacts to get those dates locked so other people don't fill it in before you. Gabe. Are we getting a copy of these slides? Yes, we will. Okay, excellent. So that's all sort of the logistics, right? You need to plan in advance. You need to build in the lead time. And then promoting your event. That's how you're really going to get people to come. If you have questions about how to put together a really kick-ass flyer, you should talk to Patty Tsai. She's a co-chair for the education committee, and she's fantastic. My flyers look like kindergarten flyers compared to what she can do. So she's happy. She's already told us that she's happy to help people have ideas and use the tools. I think she has a software program that she uses, and they just look like really professional quality photos or flyers, and that's really helpful in helping people understand the level of programming that we're doing.
She uses Canva.com.
Canva.com. Okay, I did not know that. All right, so here's a couple of things that everyone should be doing to promote your event. Put it on the AABA calendar. Put it on the NBC calendar. It'll start getting populated on the website on AABA's events calendar, and it'll start being included in weekly updates. That is not enough. That is literally the threshold. You all personally, as co-chairs and committee members, should be encouraging everyone who's involved in this event or who wants to promote it to be individually promoting it yourself. I use LinkedIn. It's the only social media that I participate in, but I always put AABA events on there, and you'd be surprised at how many people look at it. They give you statistics about how many clicks you get, a lot, and you just keep promoting it. So I'll put it that as soon as I get the flyer, I put it on LinkedIn, and then as you get closer to the event, you continue to say, don't forget, register for the MCLE Marathon. I shout out to people who are speaking and say, don't miss this opportunity to come hear Roland speak about legal ethics. That's boring, but everyone likes the ethics credits. Sorry, Roland. Individualized outreach is best. So after you've done all the sort of, putting it on a website, putting it on LinkedIn, getting it on the AABA calendar, people want to come to see their friends, obviously. We're all really, really busy. And so to be able to take the time out of your schedule to come, it's not just, oh, there's a cool event, I'm going to meet a cool speaker. Also, my friends are going, right? It's a good opportunity to connect. Like, I see some of the people in this room only at AABA events, which is really awful, but it's just because we're so busy. It's a great way to reconnect. So start emailing people. like tell all your friends, like send out a 30-person email and say, hey, I'm speaking at this event, or I'm hosting this event, I'm going to be here, I hope you'll see, be sure and register at this link. And you'll just do better, because then they'll know, oh, someone that I know and like is going to be there. So it's not that much of a social risk for me to take time out of my day to be there, because some people don't like to show up at an event and not know anybody. Committees, you should really collaborate with each other. So if you have, it doesn't have to be necessarily co-hosted with each other, but help each other out. Like, I don't only promote events that are run by the committees that I'm a liaison on. That would be silly. Like, if you see an event that you think is interesting and you think your friends would be interested or find useful, like, you should be promoting them too. It's just we're all helping each other have our events be successful. And then this is an important one for your co-chairs, or if you're actually running the event. You should put up photos on all your social media so people can see what a great event you had, and then thank the people who were responsible not only for speaking at your event, but for putting it on. And so, the people who are behind the scenes, your committee members who took the time out of their day to make sure that the registration went well, board liaisons, whoever it is that you think deserve a shout out. And one thing that I encourage co-chairs to do is, if someone on your committee is really doing a great job, reach out to their supervisors, like their boss or whatever, and say, hey, so-and-so did a really great job. We just had this awesome event and she was instrumental in putting it together, and just give them a shout out. It means a lot. It demonstrates their leadership in the community. And I think it really engages people, because then they're like, oh, I'm doing all this hard work and I'm getting recognized for it, not just within the organization, but outside in my own, place of employment. Let's see if I have one. Okay, flyers, that's what I was saying. Patty has great, it's Canva. We have tiny URLs, so you don't have to have the 50-character HTTP AABA.com thing. I think Ezra can set those up for us, and so just make sure you're using those. Like I said, repeated follow-ups are important, and the most important thing to start promoting when you have a date, don't wait for the perfect flyer. Like, I've had some events where there was no word about it because they were trying to perfect the flyer. That's okay. You can follow up with the flyer. Just get the information out as soon as you can so people can put it on their calendars. Okay. Just one thing I also wanted to say, in case I know everyone in this room is committed to AABA, and it means a lot to them, and I'm so thankful for all of that, because you wouldn't be here on a Saturday, as Charles said, giving up your valuable time if this wasn't important to you. But in case you were wondering, there is personal career development opportunity for you all too by putting on successful AABA events. Because when you're reaching out to these speakers who are leaders in AABA in the community, you're developing a connection with them. And when you finish your event successfully, they're going to remember that Anna and Kelly and Carla helped put on an amazing event. It was easy for me. I didn't have to work really hard or wonder what I was talking about or where I was going. And they automatically associate something positive with you and relationships within the AABA family, because I was the education committee co-chair and tried really hard to put on high quality programming. So not only is it good for you in developing relationships, you can also demonstrate to your firms or your organizations that you're a leader, because you know how to put on successful events, you know how to fundraise for successful events, and you know how to get people to come to your successful events. So don't think it's just about contributing to AABA, which is really important, and it definitely is, but don't also realize that there is an opportunity for all of you to get some personal career and leadership development by putting on successful events. So that's all I have.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I just want to real quick see raise your hands if you're a new co-chair. That's almost half the room. That's pretty impressive. So I'm no Michelle, but I have the job of being a little bit of the hammer here. I just want to talk. I just want to talk a little bit about event finances, and more importantly, reimbursement, which everybody wants to know about. So we have a pretty good system going for reimbursement. In terms of that, we have a Google Doc. The URL's on here. But since we have so many new co-chairs, I'm going to send out an email. I'll include it in the next event update. So we have a Google Doc, and it's important that we get receipts. So just upload them to our Google Drive, and then put the receipts in the reimbursement form. That way we can check them. We do a check run every month. So usually towards the end of the month, in the around the 20th if we can. So if you get your reimbursements in, and I'm going to start in the weekly update, I'm going to start reminding people the week we're going to do a check run so that you can get those last minute ones in. And then as soon as we get the checks cut, I mail them out. If you look on the reimbursement form and your reimbursement is shaded, that means I think I've mailed it. If you have not received it, please let me know so that we can make sure you get your check, because I want to make sure that you get that taken care of. In terms of expenses for your events, if you're going to be spending more than $1,000 on an event, you should let your board liaison know. And if you're going to be, Adonica is going to be talking about fundraising. That's going to be awesome. You should, that is a super important thing. But sometimes you're going to need to put out committee money. Usually, we ask that people do that in the front, and then we get reimbursed. If that isn't going to work for some reason, talk with your board liaison. They'll talk to me. We'll figure out what's going to happen with that. And then we have, we finally found we do have Square readers. So if you do have an event that you're charging for, we can take registration on site. But we always prefer to do registration ahead of time if possible. It's always better. That way you don't have to figure out who's going to be at the front of the event handling money. We never want to take cash. And we don't want to take checks if we can help it, just because the handoff of the receipts and that sort of thing always becomes complicated. So the more, if you are doing an event where there's a registration fee, the more that we can do that ahead of time, the better. And I'm here to help. I have a personality flaw where if somebody says they need help, I'm like, what can I do? So please don't take advantage of that. If you need help with registration for events and that sort of thing, I'm trying to go to 2 events a month just to meet members, but I'm always, I have a bad habit of just sitting at the reg desk and signing people in because, that's where I feel comfortable. Thank you so much, co-chairs, for all you do. You make my job a lot harder and a lot easier simultaneously, so I really appreciate that. And now I'm going to go do some important work and pick up lunch. So thanks, everybody.
Questions for Ezra before you guys?
And like I said, I'll send out that reimbursement link and I'll make sure that you have it. If any new co-chairs, if you're not getting an email from me on Tuesdays that lists the registration for events, please drop me an email. There's been some, I think some of the new co-chairs aren't on my list. So if you haven't gotten that email, just drop the AABA Bay Area email list and I'll get you taken care of. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And I'd like to introduce my dear friend Adonica-Jo Wada. And Adonica has been a part of AABA, I think, for as long as I have, maybe even a little bit longer. And so that's one thing that I love about this organization is that we have the commitment of members who really bring a lot to the table. And thinking back through 2018, I can't think of a single event that Adonica ran, which was an excellent, but also somehow flush with cash. So Adonica.
Thanks, Charles. I really appreciate that. And, I'm here to talk about fundraising, which is really not a fun topic for anyone, I think, because it can be uncomfortable. It can, it can be challenging. So everyone here is different and everyone has their different style. And I'm just hoping that whatever little, tidbits I have might be helpful for you to take to make your own and to, make it a little bit easier for when you consider fundraising. Fundraising, as Charles said, is so important because I want to make sure that when we put on events that that it's an event that's going to bring value to the members, to the organization, and to the sponsors, or to the hosts. So when I think about fundraising and how I want to go about it, I have a few points, really. It's one, understand the value. What is the value that you're bringing to your members, and what's the value to the sponsor or the host that you're offering to them? So you're making an ask, and you're asking that person to give you some money, and to what's their benefit? What is it that they're going to gain from it? So you have to understand the value that you're bringing. Is it opportunity? Is it visibility? Is it opportunity to speak or access to our membership? So those are things that I think that are valuable to the sponsor. Why is it important to you? Well, you want to make sure that you can take care of the membership, that you make sure that the event is fun, that that it's not stressful for anyone. So understanding the value is important. The second thing is ensuring that you can deliver on your commitments. What you say you're going to deliver and what they expect, you really don't want there to be a difference in that. If they are expecting visibility to a room full of in-house counsel, I would really work hard to make sure that my room's going to be full of in-house counsel and that they're getting introduced and having that opportunity to mingle with people. The third thing I think that we should think about when you're looking at fundraising is partnership. So, it's easier to the law firms and other organizations, but think outside of that. There are other bar associations. There are other committees within here. And even outside of the legal environment, we all have friends that are like normal people who who do things that are way more fun and have things that might be helpful, like wine, right? If you know people who work at a winery, they're going to want to get access to a group of lawyers who like to drink. So, you're giving them visibility, and then hopefully you can get some, wine at a lower cost, and space. People who have great spaces, like at restaurants or, kind of lounge areas, they want people to come to their bar or areas so that, they get more visibility to the group. So think about how you can partner with, be a little more creative in terms of who you can partner with. And then the last most important thing is you have to make the ask. But, it's an easier sell once you've identified the value that you're going to bring to that person, why they should be there, and what it's going to do for them. Now, some of the concerns that I always think about when I'm talking about fundraising or when I'm thinking about it is, not being able to deliver. That is always my biggest concern, is that if I've asked a sponsor to come and I've made, I'm like, this is going to be a great event. We're going to have 50 people there from, diverse fields of practice or your field of practice. So that's always a big concern. You want to make sure that you can deliver on what it is that you have set as your goal. And the other thing that's really hard is, burning out your allies and partners from asking all the time for money. So these are relationships that you really want to cultivate. These are, I think they're just not like money pits, but they're also, they're your friends, they're your colleagues. They are people who are also using this opportunity for their career development or for their practice development or for something that, that they need to bring home and show that there's a return on investment. So these are the things that I think if you think about these things in your programming, and I can give an example, like as a social committee, we did the Thirsty Thursdays. So we mapped it out as I think every other month, just for not to burden the committee down. But when I looked at it, so we had one that's in June, and that's LGBT or Pride Month. So I thought about, well, who do I know that's in our industry or outside anywhere who would want to partner with that? And we got a lot of money for that Thirsty Thursday, and it was hard to even just finish the budget because we had so much money for that event. But when you think about your event, think about what is attractive and who would be interested in supporting this effort. So I hope that's some helpful tidbits that I think that maybe you can take and make it your own, and hopefully we'll continue to raise money. I think it's important for me, and I think the organization, to make sure that we continue to put on quality events that are valuable and important for our membership.